uncommon map and some top-notch players. What else is there to enjoy in Beyond All Reason? Welcome back, everybody, to another match in the Brightworks, where today we're going to be taking a look at a game that was played on Mescaline. Oh, not very popular map. Not a map that's featured all too often on this channel anyways, but definitely an interesting one. A lot of the times whenever we end up playing this map is because we're playing something funky on the live stream Saturdays, by the way. Whenever you'd like to tune in, you can hit that subscribe button as well, and it'll usually let you know whenever those are starting up. Usually we play this map with 12 players, 16 players, 30 players. I think one time we did it with 34 players. There's certainly a there's a certain aesthetic to this map, and it's hills, humps, and lumps all over the battlefield. As you can see, every single one of the middle spots here highlighted as these little brown splotches. In fact, I can hit this button to highlight them in green right there, a little bit more visible. They're all up on the hillsides. Well, not all of them. I suppose there's some on the low grounds, but the majority of them are on the hillsides, and of course the geothermals are up on the hillsides as well. It means that this map has a weird sort of terrain balance with basically a lot of high grounds and a lot of low grounds, and constantly bots and vehicles and spiders and all sorts of other stuff moving around to try and invade. So it's always a little bit of an interesting one. Definitely one that we don't see all too often, so it's definitely worth taking a look at every once in a while. Today, spawning is the red team leader all the way in the back line on the southern leftern corner. It's none other than Admos, clocking in at 39 open skill, which is impressive to say the least. I would say probably you get up around the 40s and you're starting to get into that pro level, and you shall not pass. Our blue team leader on the other side here, spawning as an Armada commander, going to be exactly at the barrier of that threshold. So we've got 39. I guess if I had to draw the line in the sand, Admos would not be the pro player, and you shall not pass is the pro player. But as you can see, the difference between them is a single OS point. Now, here's the other thing. In the mid-ranges, the open skill value tends to fail to explain exactly how good a player is, quote-unquote, big air quotes, good a player is, right? Oftentimes it comes down to how much experience you have in the game and how long you've played and how high your OS is. It's kind of a combination of different things. And certainly You Shall Not Pass is looking a little bit better in that regard. Has the OS advantage and the time played advantage here, which means that I think I give it to the blue team for having at the very least the most experienced commander on the field. And it's worth pointing that out because oftentimes the most experienced commander also means the commander that has the most potential to coach his team or his or her team to victory. Sometimes that coaching can be a little bit harsher than other times, but when it does turn out, sometimes it can be the difference between winning or losing a game. An excellent scout right here coming out from Delta Storm, the 20 OS American hero right here, sending forward one of these finches and getting a beautiful look at exactly what's going on in the backline right now here for the blue team. Wonderful stuff, because that's what the red team needs to know, is where exactly that top-tier player is going to be fighting, and of course, they're lined up right against the red top-tier player. So, red and orange, the number 1 and number 3 player, are going to be playing against blue and lavender, or, blue and lavender, Harry Poppins 19, with just the most horrible-sounding name, but very creative. Harry Poppins 19, going to be, learning alongside his top-tier commander. Very cool to see. It does mean that the OS advantage goes to the red team on the southern side, but of course that slight OS advantage 1-to-1 goes in favor of the blue team. So there's a little bit of back and forth right here. That's why I thought this match might end up being a pretty interesting one. Obviously, I don't watch these matches before I cast them. I, too, like to enjoy the thrill of seeing how these battles turn out. Sometimes it's pretty easy to predict, though, how they're going to work, especially if you happen to see, for instance, all of the good players on one side of the map and all the bad players across from them, or, maybe I should say, all the experienced players and inexperienced players. Bombing run connecting with the Cyan base right here. Nice bombing run, too. Yeah, it does manage to connect with the wind turbines and, more importantly, the metal extractors. Both of them go down. This bomber wasn't shot down by the fighters right here. Eventually it will be, but it does get another payload off and pops some more wind turbines for the purple commander. With a wind speed of 1 to 17, it definitely means that when wind speed's low, it's really low, but when it's high, it's definitely efficient enough that it's worth going for them. Means that I'm not surprised to see a bunch of these commanders risking it on wind turbines, where solar panels would otherwise be the more consistent, but much, much more expensive option. Oftentimes what it comes down to, though, is how comfortable you are with building an economy and scaling it when the energy is high, and stopping the scaling, switching the scaling, or otherwise altering your plans when it is low. Stormbringer coming across the map right here, by the way. Fighter escort as well means the Stormbringer will connect with the base, but my goodness, it's a single Armada bomber, and Armada bombers, for anybody that isn't aware, are horrible. Here we go. Oh, you know what? Did Stormbringers get a little bit of a buff right there? This Stormbringer should not have been able to kill all that. Wait, what on earth is... What? Whoa. Stormbringers definitely have gotten a crazy buff, because this Stormbringer should not be able to kill those wind turbines in 1 or 2 blasts like that. Something strange is afoot here, and I wouldn't be surprised if I went and looked at the patch notes after this. I guess we can take a peek real quick in the early game right here. Was there some sort of a change? I don't see bombers. I hear a bunch of pings. I don't see bombers in there. Huh. Those bombers, pardon me, a commander explosion going down right there. That bomber was doing way more damage. There must have been some kind of change. Armada Stormbringer bombers should not be able to kill that much stuff. They're intentionally very, very bad. Two commanders going down right here. This is the Purple Commander RTX going down alongside the Tank Commander Darkstar 1. Going to be vying for control over all this metal. The Constructor moving forward. If it had reclaimed right there, it might have been able to pull its value worth out of the wreckage right here. But it's not going to be the case. And now Blade Runner is going to be more than happy to set up shop right here. Obviously no units to push this back for the Tank Commander, just the Rocketeer, but it's not going to fare very well against the Thug and the Grunt that are up and running right now for the Purple Commander. Means that all this metal is going to easily go back to the hands right now of the Cyan Hero. 20 open skill and silver chevrons to boot, going to be showing us exactly what he's got. What are you going to do with all that metal? Well, one obvious option is, of course, to dump it into solar panels and E-converters and all sorts of economy. Any economy you can get up and running, putting it all away into that. You shall not pass. Meanwhile, firing away with the Janus tank here. Ooh, those twin missiles hurt pretty bad. Ooh, repair micro is good too. Yeah, you shall not pass with some beautiful repair micro right there. Does manage to keep the Janus alive. Oh, just barely sniped right there by the Thugs. A little bit of a flanking maneuver here from the Orange Commander. Nicely done. Yeah, those Orange Thugs sweeping in from the side here and forcing the Blue Commander northward, but there's really not an angle to retreat to. Yeah, suddenly you shall not pass is caught out in the open. This is a dead commander walking right there because that comm really just doesn't have a way to get out of this situation. Gonna retreat northward here to the comfort of the team, trying to escape to Blade Runner's defensive line. I think these Orange forces could have wrapped around and gone for the commander kill. Not gonna be the case though. Admos eating up that frontline lab before there's not an opportunity to do so, and trying to walk away before those Centurion and that Janus tank can get too much value. Obviously, microing against the Janus tank is important, but the other option is simply to avoid it. Not engaging with the Janus tank is another very effective way of not allowing it to do very much damage, and the Centurion, of course, provides a lot of range here as well. It's a really stellar composition, a Star Striker composition, because it gives you a lot of vision with the Centurion firing out at laser range, and then of course the Janus firing away with its guided missile launchers makes it very difficult to avoid if you continue the fight to any capacity here. Fighters flying overhead means I wouldn't mind putting a little AA out. You're going to need AA a little bit. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. The the AA here is mainly made so that we can shut down Shuriken right here. You can see the Green Commander. Oh, the Green Commander is an Armada Commander. Oh, I see. If that's the case, then AA not nearly as impressive and not nearly as important, but it does mean that if you put some AA up while these fighters are sweeping back and forth, you're going to shoot them down and you're going to make your air players' time a lot nicer here. Anyways, Orange Commander Zydka pushing very aggressively right now. Just using a good old-fashioned Thug march. He's Thug walking, and it seems like it's Thug working. Thugs are now making their way towards the main production center right here of Harry Poppins, who seems to be out of position ever so slightly. Purple Thugs reinforcing right now, but it's just a numbers game, and the Orange Thugs are sufficient here to break the base. I think they're going to be able to kill this production structure, and once it goes down... Oh, those wind turbines, too. Oh, wind turbines built too close together. A quick learning opportunity for anybody as we watch this wind turbine field go up in smoke. If your wind turbines are too close like this, you hit Z and X. Z is in Zulu and X is in X-ray to space them out or decrease the spacing. If you space them out by a single click, it means that they won't chain react like the Lavender Commanders just did. It means that you'll be a lot happier when a bomber comes across as well and doesn't blow up your entire economy. Boom goes the Lavender Commander right there, though, taking out hundreds of metal, maybe even 1,000 or so metal worth of T1 units, and just like that, oh my goodness, the blue team loses a player already. Definitely a rough start here for the blue team. They have a nice push in the midsection, but is it really worth it? They've got the Geo up and running, so it's a lot of energy going back to the blue team, but this is definitely a rough situation. Zydka now eating up all the metal from the Purple Commander. More than happy to just go ahead and let loose a couple of D-guns here and there, and then deny that wreckage if he can't reclaim any more of it. We should be seeing that D-gun any moment now. Okay, Zydka not D-gunning the wreck here. Ooh, massive, massive misplay right here from the Orange Commander. Overstays the welcome just a little too late, and it does mean that another commander wreck goes down. Well, this is the kind of way that you come back into this situation. Suddenly, now there's twice as much metal lying on the front line right here available for the reclaim, and the blue commander is right outside of the door right there, more than happy to go ahead and try and claim it all. Meanwhile, Seafoam Green forces are moving southward here to try and lay on the pressure. We do have an agitator that was set up over here. A bit of an interesting position for it. It does deny, some of these ramps over here where some of these units might be interested in positioning. Flamethrower turret on the high ground getting immense value right now, though, and the forces are largely pushed back. I think I appreciate this static defense area, utilizing the terrain advantage in order to make sure that there's not a lot that you can do to push forward right now. Now it's going to be the blue and the purple commander reclaiming a whole bunch of this wreck, and it does mean, of course, that we're also going to be able to go ahead and step up that economy. The blue commander not stepping into T2 as aggressively as I thought we might right now. Looks like, yeah, gonna eat up all that metal, but just go ahead and invest it into a whole bunch of wind turbines. Now, again, not the end of the world here. As E-converters and wind turbines come up and running right now, you can see the blue economy is quite good. Clocking in at 1,400 energy per second right here, just based on wind turbines alone, is pretty impressive, but obviously, as well, that fluctuates, right? So as the energy climbs and dips, that is going to start fluctuating, and you're going to have a rough time dealing with that as the wind speed gets lower and your entire economy isn't transitioned to fusion reactors or geothermals or something to that degree. Cyan SC going to be overwhelmed right here on this plateau. The yellow commander going to take control over this geothermal up here on the high ground and blast it to smithereens. Nicely done. Definitely a worthwhile trade right there. Cyan SC trying to reclaim as much of this as possible and thwart these forces from holding this high ground very much longer. Ugh. A rough battle right there for the CFM Green Commander. Coming out on top eventually with the commander and managing to reclaim that wreckage. Better than, of course, it falling to the yellow commander. But retreating from this position and letting the army take over, not going to be a bad idea right here for the Seafoam Green Commander, who does have an overwhelming army, actually. This is a lot of thugs, and engaging against these aggravators, these agitators. No, aggravators, that's right. It's not exactly the wrong situation, but Chopface is stepping forward with the commander. Ooh, I'm not actually sure why that commander stepped forward so far right there. It is very healthy, though. Yeah, you know what? Actually, Chopface hasn't really taken much damage this entire game. Means he's going to be more than happy to step forward here and actually soak up some of that damage, leaving the army intact, and, of course, reclaiming some of the metal from the front line there as well. Red commander capturing an anti-air bot. This is Atmos just being annoying right here, just doing whatever they can to try and pester the blue player on this high ground right now. T2 Lab coming up and running, by the way, for Blade Runner. We also have a T2 Lab already up and running for the blue commander, so a little bit of a misplay right there, a miscommunication, you could say, from the blue team, as getting a bunch of these T2 cons out, using the metal going into this T2 Lab, is always going to be a little bit more efficient than just straight up going into a bunch of T2 Labs. Now, that being said, T2 is up and running for the red commander as well. Not so much the orange commander, though, who is just maintaining frontline production, but we do have the geothermal going down to just a couple of shell shockers, firing away from the tank commander and ravaging Blade Runner's economy. Suddenly, there's not enough energy to really convert into metal. Suddenly, there's not enough energy to actually build this laboratory. This is suddenly looking quite a bit worse right now for Blade Runner. Actually overflowing a lot of energy. There's no E-converters whatsoever, so I guess the blue commander soaking up all that excess energy and using it to go ahead and build, well, more metal, make more metal, and then turn it into more and more T2. We're going to eat up the T2 lab, and I'm guessing that must mean we're going into a fusion reactor here. We're going to go for T2s, okay. If T2's been handed out, I didn't see exactly. It does not look like it. We also only built a single T2. Feels like a little bit of a waste to go for a single T2 out of a T2 lab, considering how low the tech is here for the entire blue team. Everyone on the front line here is still T1, except for It's Mike, who managed to get a T2 lab up and running now and is helping upgrade the green economy up into a proper T2. As you can see, Desfox getting some of those T2 mexes up and running, and eventually a Persecutor cannon as well to fire away at range. Sheldon here blasting away at the Maroon forces, slowly but surely. It's a single Sheldon, but he's been tasked with glorious purpose. Good old T1 battle going on right now. We have a whole bunch of thugs fighting a whole bunch of aggravators, and of course that advantage goes to the thugs whenever they're in proper skirmishing range right here. Cyan SC trying to get some value with this agitator as well, but of course it does struggle whenever it has to turn its head around and try and avoid friendly firing. It's a little bit clunky on this hill, so defending it usually better than trying to play around it. Not the end of the world, though, and of course you can always put it in its hierarch mode to deal with the cliff-sidedness of this map. Does make it a little bit more difficult to deal with, and makes it, well, it makes it more difficult to micro, but it also makes it a little bit more threatening, right? It does a bigger burst of AoE, and it also does a little bit more damage. It's kind of a trade-off that a lot of commanders are definitely willing to utilize. Transports here, dropping build power to the front line just so that we can set up some static defenses. We're going to build a Pitbull turret, and then, of course, we're going to go into a Rattlesnake. Rattlesnake's quite good, but we do already have the Persecutor cannon coming up. Ooh, Orange Force is running right on by, though. Oh, no. What a beautiful run by right there from Zydka. Oh, the blue commander not paying attention to this southern side, not realizing that there was just a gaping hole in the armor. Luckily, miss micro from the orange commander means that a lot of these units are going to actually explode with the explosions of the buildings. It's one of the nice things about buildings in this game. They tend to solve run-bys on their own. This damage definitely could have been a whole lot worse. This entire low ground wind turbine field should have been cleaned up. We do have another swarm of grunts headed forward here, actually. And we do have an LLT to defend. Obviously, one LLT does not a perfect defense make. In this case, though, it will be sufficient. Alright, all said and done, not the end of the world for the blue commander, of course. We've already got the T2 mexes up and running, so that means that, of course, we're also going to be able to build some of those good old-fashioned T2 energy production structures, fusion reactors, namely. Looks like we've got a blue T2 constructor headed down for some reason. T2 constructors moving all over the place, really, to try and go ahead and get as much of this metal pumping out of these metal extractors as possible. We have loads of constructors being built here as well. I believe the idea being to go ahead and go for a whole bunch more wind turbines. Just properly scaling the economy using wind turbines. It's a bit of a cheeky strategy, but I suppose it works, and especially on maps where the wind speed is so high. For some reason, this agitator is not firing here. Ugh. I don't know that I'm a fan of this agitator. I feel like it didn't properly get its value. It might have been close with 11 kills and firing away here for some time, but I'm not convinced entirely that it was actually worth its expense here. These Sheldon are going to be wonderful, though, for tearing down this massive wall of T1 static defenses that is still continually being built here by X-Shifty. Yeah, a massive sum of forces has been spared to the left-hand side, to the southern side on the left-hand side, going to be awaiting their deployment. I have a feeling these spawns are going to start running forward here any second. We do have a bunch of static defenses coming up, though, and the red team is well aware, and this Rocketeer is firing away here, actually getting a lot of value. I mean, I don't hate it. Here's that Rattlesnake firing away, and at this point it's popped everything around over here. It's popped the build power, it's popped the laboratory, it's popped the Persecutor that was coming up as well. And it just means that this thing is firing away for whatever effect it can find against some of these LLTs. Finally, they were scouted, so it does mean that this thing has the proper vision in order to actually fire away over here. And so now, finally, that cannon will start connecting in a big way. Except for the fact that it's dumb firing. And we need to adjust this cannon. Putting it right between these two defenses obviously makes a lot of sense. Wind speed plummeting right now, so you can see the orange commander struggling as their economy, like the blue commander, was based entirely on wind turbines. Oof. A rough moment to go for an advanced fusion reactor. Also nowhere near the build power, which is interesting. Needed to go ahead and go for one of those. Sheldon have, meanwhile, on the northern side, as predicted, ravaged the T1 forces here, and they're just going to continue whittling down on things. Yeah, this is a slow and grueling death right here for the pink and yellow commanders, as they lose 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 structures, all slowly but surely to the Sheldon that are just carelessly walking within range. Okay. Deathmatch here misplaying this slightly. No reason Sheldon should ever be within range of T1 static defenses. There just isn't a reason. They have so much range and they have so much firing rate, they have so much mobility as well, that there's never a situation where that should really ever occur. They're basically meant as a siege unit that should never be within range of any other unit. So the fact that static defenses, a unit that doesn't move, namely, gets on top of your Sheldon is just a plain old flat blunder. Being quite critical of Deathmatch here, though, of course. This is a tricky front line to break. I think including a couple of Arbiters would ruin the stalemate here. I think if you threw an Arbiter or two in the mix, it would just continue firing those missiles away, and eventually you would figure out how to target down the radar jammer, meaning that you could actually target down everything else properly. That, or, of course, you can go ahead and go for some of those radar accuracy enhancement, what are they called? Pinpointers, that's what they're called. The lovely pinpointer, of course, an option as well if you're going for units like, for instance, rocket spiders, sharpshooters, Sheldon, hounds, all those ones that fire away into the distance and require radar accuracy, or at the very least greatly benefit from it. You can see this rocket spider whiffing entirely, as this is where it believes the red tower is. Sometimes 1 or 2 of those pinpointers is really all it takes. 3 is technically perfect. That's where you get, like, I believe it's like 98% efficient or something like that, essentially to the point that you never miss a shot, or you have enough accuracy that your units are always going to target the appropriate unit, but going for 2 or 3, or 1 or 2 definitely helps, right? A 30% and then a 60% advantage. It's not linear, actually. I think it's like closer to like a 40% and then a 60% or something like that, and then it's like a 90%. I don't know exactly how the math works. It's probably like 50%. So the first one is probably really important, and then after that it trails off slowly but surely. You can only be so accurate. Spider's moving in, the red commander ready to intercept. Oh, Spider is not prepared for the commander on the high ground. Nicely done by Atmos right there. Prepared to thwart the attack from the blue commander. Rocket Spider's firing away wherever they can, but very, very nicely pushed back right there. Here we go. We have an Arbiter come out from the orange commander, firing away its high-arc missiles. Going to be dangerous, to say the very least, for these static defense structures. The units here, not going to be terribly scared. Persecutor cannon, though, definitely causing a little bit of a stir-up. The reclaim spiders moving into the backline here. A bit interesting. Not entirely sure what their purpose was. I mean, obviously their purpose here is to reclaim the composition. It's a fun composition to play because your army essentially eats itself as it pushes, but it also eats the enemy army, right? So if you get it to scale enough, if you have enough momentum behind it, it's basically an infinite motion machine. You eat your enemy's corpses and you eat your own corpse as well, and it's enough momentum to carry you through a really rough early mid game. Miscellaneous in a little bit of trouble here as a bunch of fiends push forward. We do have an advanced exploiter, though, the armed advanced metal extractor, which does a huge sum of damage. It fires rockets, a heavy laser tower. It judges you from afar as well. It's really brutal. Persecutor dumbfiring in the northern side here as well. Once your Persecutor, once your static defenses in general are no longer able to target anything, you might consider deconstructing them. Yeah. You shall not pass. Moving forward right here. Wonder what the play is right now for the blue commander. He's got the radar jammer bot. So the blue commander, you shall not pass, is hoping to cloak the commander within range of the radar jammer and then go for some cheeky D-guns or something. Spybot moving into position here as well obviously makes this a little bit concerning. The orange commander with a spybot of their own as well. Pimple turret's going to suffer immensely here as the spybot does start to, does start to do its work, providing vision for these to fire away right now. For some reason, the Arbiter stepped within range. That was definitely a misplay right there. Cyan SC, yielding this high ground. There's a lot of metal tied up in static defenses right there, but I don't think it's worth fighting it with T1 anymore. The Seafoam Green Commander needs to just step into a T2 economy, and eventually we do get there. We have the T2 mexes up and running. We have the T2 units rolling out. It's just a matter of that energy production. At this point, the Blue Commander's still nowhere near enough production here to get this APHIS up and running. Such an interesting idea to go for this APHIS. It definitely feels like a very late game investment on a game that's really not. It doesn't look like it's gonna go the distance. This game looks like it could teeter out with one significant swing or maybe a heavily invested bombing run from either one of these commanders. Spybot right here, again, trying to find value wherever it can. Oh, the Spiderbot coming very close, but not gonna find the Spybot. Of course, Spybot's cloaked and stealth. They are invisible to radar and to line of sight, which is, that's all your bases. That covers all of them. There is, however, a detector that can detect them, and it's called the Tremor Sense Detector. I forget what the actual name of the thing is. The Nemesis, that's right. The Nemesis is the device that actually detects footsteps, so it can detect Spybots moving around, but if a Spybot is maintaining perfectly still, it still can't detect it, which is a pretty interesting mechanic. Not one that I feel like we see all too often. It's definitely a little bit more of a, I want to say it's a niche mechanic that's not seen all too very commonly, but it would be interesting to see, like, for instance, if those seismic detectors were buffed ever so slightly to the point that they could, oh, Spybot detected, very close call right there. If those seismic detectors were buffed to the point that they could actually, for instance, detect units outside of radar range, like they were like a permanent detection solution, so anti-jammer, or like radar jammer didn't really mean anything, it just permanently detected. They wouldn't have the accuracy of the radar, but it would of course allow you to still detect things outside of where normally a radar jammer would cover them up. Do you get what I'm saying? I feel like that would be an interesting way to buff them and make them a little bit more useful, I would say, on the front lines. Not necessarily something that needs a buff either way. It's not a gameplay mechanic that I'm sure defines beyond all reason, but it would be something interesting to look at here. Termites coming up the hillside right now for the purple commander. RTX looking to do a little bit of damage and finding the angle for it. The termites blasting away with their little heat ray tusks and doing a wonderful job of cleaning up this high ground. Just like that, those T1 medium tanks, the Janices, the shell shockers, all the rest of it go up in a puff of smoke. Nicely done right there. Persecutor happy to switch targets at this point and go firing into the forces of the yellow commander here. Sheldon on the high ground for the yellow commander, firing away right now. We've set ourselves up for a good old-fashioned artillery game. Prude in a little bit of trouble. Very, very resistant geothermal here, though, so you can see just a little bit of repair micro means that this thing works wonderfully. That was a gigantic explosion right there for the yellow commander. Hold on, I'm going to back off a second. So I backed off just a couple seconds here so we can see exactly what happened. A whole bunch of fiends run forward from the green commander, catching the yellow commander standing amidst the Sheldon, and boom! What a beautiful explosion right there. Knocking out the entire army right there for the yellow commander. That is about as big of a connection as you could possibly hope for. Fox definitely giddy as can be over the fact that he just wiped out the entire yellow army with just a single play. Just a couple of Sheldon, a couple of Fiends, a very inexpensive unit comparatively to the Sheldons, of course, which are 410 middle apiece. That might be the play to save this northern side. Otherwise, this was looking dire right here. That army had scaled up to quite a significant mass, and it definitely could have continued pushing a little bit harder. But of course, being completely shut down, that snowball is going to have to restart from scratch, and it means the yellow commander is going to have to try and rebuild everything that was part of it all the way back up again. X-Shifty in a little bit of trouble here as well as the Sheldon from now the Seafoam Green commander that's going to be Cyan SC also tear down that next commander. Nicely done. Sheldon making a wonderful showing for themselves, showcasing just how deadly they can be. We do have a sharpshooter out on the map, and I am paying attention to it because I love watching sharpshooters work. One of my favorite, if not my favorite unit in the game, the sharpshooter. It does a ridiculous sum of damage, and it of course just has one of the coolest weapons ever with that little miniature particle accelerator that it fires out of its backpack to devastate anything. It'll punch a hole, not a big hole, but it'll punch a hole through basically anything. Sometimes it takes a couple shots though, because it has to punch 2 or 3 holes in order to actually disrupt enough systems. You know, break redundancies and whatnot. I like to imagine that the cost of the sharpshooter really comes with its targeting computer that's able to like very precisely x-ray and pinpoint the weak points of different units and structures and whatnot. By the way, if I ever go off on a tangent like that, since enough people have asked me about it in the comment section, I am completely making it up. There is no lore for this game, not established anyway, so I like to just make things up and then claim that they're true and pretend like it's been the case forever. It's the only time I'll admit it, though. Advanced energy converters coming up right here for the blue commander. We also have an anti-nuke, which is always lovely to see, of course. One of those things I always forget to build, but we do have that fusion up and running as well. Advanced fusion reactor, actually. Turning out loads of energy and turning it into metal is, of course, wonderful for the blue economy. Going to be stimulated quite nicely. And there we go. The play of the game, reclaiming the rattlesnake. That's exactly what I'm looking to see here. The static defenses aren't worth very much. Are these medium tanks? Oh my goodness. It's worse. We're going for Wolverines. We are now 26 minutes and 41 seconds into this game. And X-Shifty is going ahead and building Wolverines. T1 mobile artillery. We have the T2 economy. We even have a fusion reactor. And we're going for Wolverines. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're looking for ways to lose a game of Beyond All Reason, if you're looking for a way to throw a game back into the enemy's hands, one of the easiest ways, it's not this, but it's close, is feeding medium tanks. And that's one of the things that I've seen a lot. Especially on Supreme Isthmus. I hate to say it, but Supreme Isthmus is notorious for it. You'll win a massive push, a very aggressive early game, and then everyone will suddenly start making medium tanks for some reason. And they'll just put them on the other side of the map where they'll die and then be reclaimed, and then suddenly you're dealing with a bunch of T2 transitions all at once, where you've basically exhausted all of your resources. It's a sad sight to see, I would say. Yeah, it's definitely not does not spark joy, I would say. The red team clearly unhappy with the way that this has been sustained for so long. Just a gargantuan fleet of bombers moving forward right here. That's a massive 25 bombers heading around right there. Ooh, that Manticore gets a shot off. Oh my goodness, a beautiful connection knocks out all of those bombers as they plummet out of the sky. The green force is sweeping in to save the day. What a wonderful stop to an aggressive bombing run. I don't think the red team really realized just how close this T3 production facility was. Those bombers easily could have made it over foot of this base and deployed those warheads, shutting down this T3 production. But instead, it's going to be Vanguards on the front line now firing away. Vanguard's sort of the perfect solution to replace the rattlesnakes that were firing away once, as they are also mobile. Yeah. That's an impressive change of technology because they do have a big gun. The one big gun, and it fires a huge burst as well, but it does a huge sum of damage, and the more of them there are, of course, the more they're going to scale, as well as the flanking damage from their projectiles landing on different sides, means that these Vanguard are going to start becoming really, really dangerous. The Respot's keeping this Prude alive. I can't believe how long this Prude has been alive for. This thing has been repaired more than virtually any other building in this game. Finally, the Vanguard are firing away here to try and deal with this. Oh, it's going to be close. Boom goes the Prude. Oh my goodness. So hard fought to keep that Prude alive, and for it only to die in the end is so brutal. Vanguard firing away here as well, and there's not really a read on what's going on. We do know where the Persecutor is, though, so we definitely should be targeting that down. A bit of a lull here, though, as definitely it feels like both of these teams are looking for the angle to attack each other, but the red team, well, with the reclaim advantage is going to be massive, but other than that, with a slight metal advantage, the blue team, however, with the energy production advantage. So, sort of saying different things, but getting to the same conclusion, which is that as the energy continues to scale, the metal advantage also continues to scale, right? Energy production becomes metal production in the late game, so it really does come down to who can produce more energy at the end of the day. It means that these advanced fusion reactors the blue player is producing are going to ultimately be the advantage that the blue team needs to make up for the lack of metal production, essentially due to map presence. Was Marauder taking a heavy hit right there? Yeah, at this point, honestly, just taking him back to the lab and getting him repaired, not a bad idea. Vanguard firing away right here, but I think we need some sort of scout in order to make sure that this actually works out properly. Yeah, these Vanguard are having a really rough time finding a good angle. They did take down the Persecutor, though, so as long as they are covered by the Razorback, which they are, this should be no problem whatsoever. It is cool to watch the Vanguard work, though. I really do love it. They're such a funny little unit, but they have such firepower. Such dangerous firepower. Always cool to watch those bad boys. The tank commander even pinging them out of fear. And surprisingly, not a single Juno has appeared. Oh, never mind. Right on cue, the blue commander goes ahead and sets up a couple of those Juno. I was thinking the exact same thing, because obviously these radar jammers have been a tremendous pain in the side right here for the blue team, as these Vanguard could have been getting well to work for a long time now had these jammers not been up and running. We do have a tick spam marching forward, which is ultimately going to be a decent solution here as well. We have Dragon's Teeth to block this area off. I think it's where these ticks want to go eventually, but they just can't because, of course, those Dragon Teeth prevent it. Vanguard blasting apart those statics, though, are going to be quite nice. And, of course, with the Persecutor down and with the tactical missile launcher, the only aggression over here, this should be able to be resurrected and repaired and kept alive. The Prude, that is. Big old T2 battle on this hill right here. It's going to be Sumos fighting against the Sheldon, though. That's a great advantage for the Sumos because they managed to get within range. It never should have happened. That's definitely a misplay right here from the Yellow Commander, keeping those... Is it the Yellow Commander? Ooh, it might not be, actually. It's the Brown Commander, actually. Andy D. Allowing those Sheldon to come within range of Sumo is not really something that ever should happen. The Sumo with a speed of 38, a whopping 38, versus the Sheldon... Oh, they're all dying. Versus the Sheldon's speed of 50, so... Almost doubled the speed right there for the Sheldons. They should always be kited around. You never want to let your Sheldons get killed. Sheldons rely heavily on the snowball effects, so when you lose them, it means a lot because you have to restart all the way from scratch. And they do cost quite a bit, so it's worth mentioning that whenever you have a Sheldon snowball, spreading them out a little bit can be useful, especially so that they don't all die to, for instance, a tactical missile launcher or a bunch of landmines or something like that that's going to otherwise destroy your face. Speaking of destroying your face, though, Desfox going for the play of plays right here. It's nothing fancy. It really isn't. It's a bunch of Fiends and a bunch of Grunts. But instead of keeping them in the backline, we've actually just decided to use them. Spybot not detonated right there by the Maroon Commander. I think we were trying to paralyze a big portion of this. And just like that, the Green Commander is pushed all the way into the base of the Maroon Commander and the Brown Commander. Well, I'll be. E-converters pop, taking with them all the build power, and of course that frees up these Fiends to continue blasting away right here. The T3 in a lot of trouble. Those anti-air guns going to be blasted here. No reason we shouldn't split off some of these units and not lose them all. Yikes. A little bit of a mismicro right here from the Green Commander. Eventually... Oh, please kill the Aphis. Okay. Eventually the Brown Commander's Aphis will be popped right here. What an overwhelming sweep from the northern side. All it really took was about 100 Grunts and 100 Fiends, and that broke the entire northern side. We were hoping for a late game T3 late game, an epic T3 late game, and really we ended it with a whole handful of Fiends. The southern side turning into a big T3 mess, but not really going much further because this northern side said, I think I'll take care of it now. Nice aggression right there from Desfox. Love to see it. Oftentimes they can be difficult to judge, and it's not every day that you're going to find the angle appropriate to actually do that sort of damage, so it's cool to see whenever it does happen. Yeah, Sheldon firing away here at the Grunts to try and knock them out. The Maroon Commander, though, desperately low on metal and energy and build power and all the rest of it. The bases in the backline continuing to be ravaged, and just like that, the blue team pulls ahead with a huge advantage. It's going to be the Seafoam Green Commander going down for some reason. Losing it on the front line right there as the green forces surround the base. Managing with their light lasers to blast down the T2 production facility here. That T2 lab pops, and all the grunts go up and smoke alongside it. Grunts basically made of like paper clips and scrap metal. They're very, very flimsy, but of course, all you really need is that gun that's duct taped to their outer shell, and then you're going to have a pretty effective unit. Basically what Cortex relies on. It's a complex battle on this southern side. We've got all the way up to T3, and we've got Marauder just standing idly by. We've got the Vanguard firing away here as well. Razorbacks and all the rest of it are going to be engaging, but it's kind of a fruitless battle because the whole story is being written on this northern side instead. Bombers connecting with the T1 laboratory right here. Not sure why we prioritize that over the E-converters or the APHIS, but at the very least, those T1 planes are no longer going to come out. I guess the build power went down too, which is even more important. Losing that build power means no more planes as well, and it does mean that the red team is now in a really dire situation. More and more bombers coming across, and without air reinforcements to pick up the slack here, it means that these bombers are essentially uncontested. Obviously, anti-air static defenses are going to be sufficient for some cases, but in most applications, you need some sort of fighter screen to really deal with the masses of bombers. Tons of Razorbacks out as well, and it does mean that this is suddenly a game the red team cannot come back from. GG is called as the blue team with an overwhelming aggression on the northern side. It was a big lull in the aggression for a second, but then suddenly, like a switch that Deathmatch flicked, the aggression was turned on, and so too was the victory, as the blue team managed to take the win right as a helicopter flies over my house. Hope you had a lovely time, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you in the very next game of Beyond All Reason. Peace out, everybody.